How to make shoes. If you're a beginner in shoemaking, the process looks very complicated and difficult. So today in this shoemaking video, I want to show you the entire process of making shoes, the full process on how to make shoes, so you will decide if this craft for you or not. So don't forget to subscribe and let's watch the video.
This is very important for me to show you that shoemaking process is not hard and you as a total beginner can understand everything and then you can make your own shoes. And together with the full shoemaking process, I want to show you what tools you need to use in each step of shoemaking. And you will understand that you really don't need to have too much. You need to have only minimum set of tools, basic tools, and now you will learn what tools you need to have. So first we will start from shoemaking process, and I divided this full process on 5 steps. I divided it on pattern making. It's one of the most important steps in shoemaking, first step that you will need to learn. Then you need to cut and sample and sew your patterns. You need to make sole and heels, also insoles, and then lasting. Okay, you understand that I simplified the shoemaking process to show you in the best way that you will understand it. There are much more details in each steps, but for you as a beginner, it's enough to understand the full process, to see the all steps together, to understand how shoes are made. And we start from the first step is pattern making. I personally love pattern making because from this step will depend all other steps. And first we need to cover our last with masking tape. This is the first step in shoemaking. Here, to cover your last with masking tape, you need to have last, obviously, and masking tape. I use simple masking tape that you actually can buy in your local store. Next step is to apply your shoe design on the dust. And here you need to know how to apply your shoe design correctly because there are different rules that you need to follow. And to apply your design correctly on your last, you need to measure certain things and you need to measure it with measurement tape. So in this step, you need to have measurement tape. Next, after you will apply your design on the last, you need to cut out this masking tape to make basic pattern. And after you'll cut masking tape pattern, you need to attach it to the cardboard, and that's why in this step you need to have cardboard. I use duplex. It's 120 grams. It's uh, very comfortable cardboard to work with. But if you don't have this cardboard, you can use any other cardboard. It must be flexible enough but thick enough as well. And to make these patterns, for example, to add lasting allowance to your basic pattern, you need to have compasses, okay? Ordinary compasses that you also can buy in your local store. So after you will make this basic pattern, this is the pattern that includes all lines of your shoe design. It's very important pattern because from this pattern you will develop all other parts of your shoes. But before you will develop it, you need to check your pattern. And I teach in my courses and I also work in this way. I check my patterns from paper is the best way to check your patterns, because if you will check it from leather, you will not see a mistake if you have, because leather stretches, and even if you have mistake you will not see it. But working with ordinary paper, you will see if you have mistake, because if you have mistake, the paper pattern will not fit perfectly your last. You will see that your paper pattern not lays good on the last. Okay, and in this step of work you need to have ordinary paper A4, and here also you may use nails, the length of these nails of about 1 mm, but if you don't have nails you can work with masking tape to attach your paper pattern to the bottom last. Okay, after you will check your pattern, next is to make other parts of your pattern, lining and upper. And here you also need to work with cardboard and compasses, and also uh, in pattern making you also need to have the cutting board, okay, because if you will not have something to protect your table, you will scratch the surface of your table. So if you don't have special cutting board, you can use some piece of plastic to work with. Okay, the main reason to have it is to protect your table from scratching. Okay, so we finished with the pattern making. After you will make pattern of your upper and lining, we need to move on to the next step, to the cutting, assembling and sewing. Here you need to cut your leather, and you see, for example, this is one of the screenshot of one of my courses. Now you will understand why we need those cardboard patterns, because we need to use them to cut leather. So you see, this is the wamp of the moccasin, and using this cardboard you will cut leather. And to cut leather, you don't need to have any special knife. You can work with ordinary utility knife. What you need to have here is good blade, and I use blade BD100. And also here in this step you need to use pen, silver pen. This is special erasable pen to mark certain points and marks. According to those marks you will assemble different parts of your pattern. This is erasable pen for leather. After you finish your work, you will erase those marks. Next is to assemble all parts together. Before you will assemble all parts, you need to skive certain places on your pattern. For example, to fold top line, you need to skive. If you will not skive, you will have very thick edge, and it will be very difficult to sew together the upper and lining because of this thick edge. Or you need to skive places where you need to attach two parts together. So in a step of assembly you need to skive. That's why you need to have shoemaking knife to skive edges. Then you need to have hammer, because before you will sew those parts you need to attach those parts together using contact glue and to hit with the hammer to attach them well. And also you need to reinforce certain seams, and for this reason you need to have two types of reinforcement tapes: the wide reinforcement tapes with width of 16 or 15 millimeters, and narrow reinforcement tape with width of 4 millimeters. Using this narrow reinforcement tape you will make your folding very easy and beautiful, and also will reinforce the top line, for example, using this reinforcement tape. And after you will assemble all parts together, or during assembling you will need to sew different parts. You know, there are footwear types where you need to assemble one part and then sew it, or there is footwear types where you need to assemble all parts and only when you need to sew all parts together. So here you need to have sewing machine and use sometimes folding hammer. But here I placed not folding hammer, I placed shoemaking hammer. Why? Because you actually don't need to have special folding knife. And also here in assembling I showed you the simple shoemaking hammer, not the folding hammer, because you can work with this hammer in the same way as you will work with special folding hammer. It's good enough to make this assembling and to flat the seams after you will sew all parts together. Okay, so here you need to have a sewing machine, and you can work with shoemaking hammer to flat seams to attach well different parts also in assembly. After you will sew all parts together, you need to make insoles, because this is the inner part on which you will attach all parts of your shoes. You will attach the edges of the upper to the insole, you will attach sole to the insole and heels. So this part is very important, and you can make your insoles from different materials. In my courses I explain how to work with cardboards and how to work with vegetable tan leather. What is important here is to make pattern. First you need to make pattern of the shoe bottom, and then to make pattern for different parts of the insoles if you will make insoles from cardboards. There are two cardboards, this one, the shank board, and the Texan board. Texan board more flexible and thinner than the shank board. Shank board is harder than tex board, for reason because here we need to have good support for our arc zone, and that's why between those two materials in the arc area we need to attach steel shank. So in this step of insole making you need to have these tools. You need to have hammer to attach cardboards together to create insole, and also you need to use your hammer to make curve in the steel shank according to the curve of the shoe last bottom. And to attach all these parts together you need to work with contact glue, and after you will attach all parts together it's the time to finish the edge of the insoles, cardboard made from cardboard. And for that reason you need to have or Dremel to finish the edges, to sand the edges, or rasp. Next step is lasting. This is the process where you will place your leather upper on the last and will pull edges of the upper to attach them to the insole. In this process you need to have these tools. You need to have pincers, you need to have nails. You have here two types of nails: the small ones that you will use to attach the back part of your upper, and long nails to attach the front part of the upper. You need to have hammer to hit well edges of lasting allowance and to create beautiful shape on the heel. And to attach all this, to attach the edges to the insole, you need to work with contact glue. And you know, during the lasting you need to work also with two materials, or one of them: chemical non-woven material. This is the material that you need to use to create stiffeners. Or if you don't have this material you can work with vegetable tan leather. These parts you need to attach in front, this one in the toe, and also this one in the back of your shoes. These parts will keep the shape of your shoes. Okay, and also to finish the edges, after you will last your upper, you need to work with rasp to sand the edges and create beautiful bottom of your shoes before you will move on to the next step, the sole making. Here, sole making. Okay, here I'm showing how to make soles from leather. I personally love to work with vegetable tan leather, and I teach how to work with this leather to create different types of soles. And to make these soles you need to have pattern. So first you need to prepare pattern for the sole, then cut it from vegetable tan leather and attach it to the bottom of your lasted shoes. And to create bottom, to make flat bottom, to have beautiful and comfortable soles, you need to work on the bottom using cork. So cork here is one of the materials that you need to use. Also, to make the soles, you need to have vegetable tan leather. You need to have shoemaking knife to skive edges of leather, because leather is vegetable tan leather is too thick for women's shoes, and to have beautiful thin edge of the soles, you need to skive the edge using shoemaking knife. Then after you will attach the sole, you need to attach it well using hammer. Here you will use the handle of the hammer to attach well these soles to the shoes. You don't need to have here any special tools, only hammer, and you will make beautiful soles. You will attach them well. Now to attach the soles to the bottom of your shoes, you need to have contact glue, and also to finish the edge of the soles, you can work with rasp or Dremel. After you will attach soles, it's time to build heels. Actually, there are different types of heels that you need to build before you will attach soles, but this is one of the most common heels that you need to build after you will attach soles to the finished shoe. Okay, and there are different materials to build heels. Here I show you how to build heel using vegetable tan leather. So here in this step of heel making, you need to work with vegetable tan leather, to cut this leather and to skive leather in different places to have beautiful and flat heels. You need to work with shoemaking knife, same shoemaking knife that you saw in other steps of shoemaking. You need to have same shoemaking knife to attach well all layers of our leather stacked heels, because this type of heels we need to build using few layers of leather. This is leather stacked heels. Okay, so to attach layers of leather, you need to work with contact glue, and after you will attach all these layers, you need to finish your heels. And to finish heels, you can work with Dremel or with rasp. Okay, and I have to say that to build beautiful heels and to have identical heels on both halves of our shoes, because we have pair of shoes, it's better to prepare a pattern for each layer of your leather stacked heels and attach them layer by layer. Only in this way you will have identical heels first of all, and only in this way you will need to work on the finishing not too much. Okay, so here pattern making is one of the most important things to have well done heels. So after you will finish your heels, this is actually your final step in shoemaking. I mean, this is the main final step in shoemaking, and this is minimum tools that you need to use in all steps of shoemaking. Of course, later after you will get some experience in shoemaking, you will find some new tools that you need to use, but to start making your shoes, it's enough to use those shoemaking tools.